Hello and welcome to Intervention, the podcast from the Protech project. Protech is an EU-funded study exploring the feasibility of using safety tech to help reduce the viewing and demand for child sexual abuse material on the internet. My name is Kat McShane. I'll be your host for this podcast. And if you're not sure yet, listener discretion is advised, as we will be discussing the viewing of child sexual abuse images and videos. If you want to find out more about the Protech project, you can visit the website on protechproject.eu, on X or Twitter at protech_EU, or the Protech project on LinkedIn. So in previous episodes, we discussed the overwhelming volume of child sexual abuse material on the internet and why preventative tech is needed to stop the viewing and demand of this content. We also spoke with the survivor to get an understanding of the impact that having their abuse imagery being shared online has on them. And we explored the concept behind the intervention platform that's been developed for this project, which has been called Salus. And for those who want to know, that's named after the Roman goddess of safety and well-being. So in this episode, which is episode 3, we want to give listeners an understanding of the pilot stage and how it has been implemented. We want to give some early insights from the project participants who have been using the tech to help stop them viewing sexual abuse imagery of children, as well as to get a viewpoint from the professionals involved in the rollout of the pilot. So with this in mind, I'd like to introduce our guests for today's episode. So speaking with us are Larissa Van Puyvelde, a criminologist and junior researcher at the University Forensic Centre in Antwerp, Belgium, and Chris Pummell, a child sexual abuse prevention manager at the Lucy Faithfull Foundation in the UK, both of whom have been involved in the management and support of participants in the Protech project. So welcome to you both.
Hi.
Hi.
We're also going to hear excerpts from an interview with the Protech project volunteer. He talks about his involvement in the project, the use of the Salus app, and how it's been used to help manage his behavior online. So to give a bit of background, so this was initially planned as a 2-year project. The Protech project has now been extended by a few months. That's to allow for research needs and to ensure that all the tech components were functioning sort of optimally before deployment in the pilot phase of the project. Through this whole process, there's been early interviews and workshops, participant recruitment and onboarding, and there's been further interviews and the provision of essential support and resources for each participant who was provided with access to the Salus app. Participants have taken part in the pilot in 3 sites across Europe, in Germany, Belgium, and the UK. Now, Larissa and Chris, you've both played pivotal roles in working with participants in the project. I think it would be helpful for listeners to get an understanding of the organizations and the institutions you both work for and what your day job is, so to speak, and to find out how participants were recruited for the Protech project. So, Larissa, can I start with you? How does your organization help to prevent sort of the sexual abuse of children?
Yeah, so the University Forensic Centre focuses on prevention through 3 ways. So first of all, we have our outpatient treatment center where our therapists counsel people who have been convicted for sexual offenses, but also persons who are not yet convicted for this kind of offenses. But we have also a group who are operating in the gray zone, as we name it, where prevention is the main focus in therapy. Furthermore, we are also the Flemish reference center. For example, for the specialized treatment centers in Flanders, we offer support and we organize, for example, conferences about every topics relating to sexual abuse. And last but not least, we have also established the Stop It Now helpline in Flanders, together with ITER, which is also a specialized outpatient treatment center in Brussels. And my colleague Mine de Boek is a project coordinator of the Stop It Now helpline in Flanders.
Thank you. It sounds like you're doing some really important work there. So how was it that the participants became part of the Protech project? How did you get them involved at the University Forensic Centre?
Well, actually, we have recruited our participants within our outpatient treatment center at the UFC, and we have also recruited through the Stop It Now helpline. So both with help from the therapists and the helpline staff.
And Chris, is this similar to your organization? So how do you work in this sort of child sexual abuse prevention space?
So the Lucy Faithfull Foundation is the only UK charity that's dedicated to preventing child sexual abuse. So we're quite a unique organisation. But we work mainly through our flagship Stop It Now helpline to assist people who are concerned about their thoughts and feelings of a sexual nature towards children and young people. Now, we've been running the foundation for 33 years now, and the Stop It Now helpline has been running for 23 years. So we encourage people to contact us if they're concerned about, as I say, their thoughts and feelings sexually towards children and young people. We also work with families and the non-offending partners or persons involved, and we want to help them through what can be particularly difficult times.
So how did you, at Lucy Faithfull, how did you recruit participants to take part in Protech?
As I mentioned, we operate the Stop It Now helpline. We also run psycho-educative programs for those people who've come to the notice of police and who come to us. And so it was a mixture of recruiting from the Stop It Now helpline, those people who called into the helpline and who were eligible to take part in this project. But we also utilised those people who had taken part in the programs that we call Inform Plus programs. And we were then able to ask them whether they would take part in the project.
And what was the sort of the interest and the take up from people? Did they all want to get involved?
In my experience, yeah, they did. They were keen to be able to do something. And this is something that we'll probably touch on later as we go through our chat. It is that they were keen to want to do something that would help them in their, if you like, their rehabilitation.
And so we can understand it. So there's app or a bit of safety tech. How was that sort of incorporated as part of the sort of the intervention program that you help to support people? How was it sort of built in?
Well, what we did with the Salus app, we were able to ask the participants whether they would be prepared to have an app on one of their devices. And as it turned out, the majority of them had that app on their mobile device, be it an Android device or an Apple device. And with the help of our tech partner, SafetyNet, we were able to provide instructions to them on how to download the app, how to install it, what it would do. And the key to this is the app is there to block any child sexual abuse imagery or video from actually being seen by a participant if they were choosing to try to view it. So it would block it at source. They wouldn't be able to see it, and it would then provide a warning message telling them exactly that it's been blocked.
And how did they get access to this app? So, because in previous episodes, we've sort of talked into what sort of participants were most concerned about with using this sort of technology. And there was a lot of it was about sort of being able to remain anonymous and keeping their privacy. So other people didn't know that they were using this app. So how were they able to gain access to it?
Well, we were really clear at the beginning that we would maintain their anonymity. The whole basis and how the Stop It Now helpline operates is around confidentiality. And without that, you could argue people would be unlikely to call us or get in touch with us. So it's built around confidentiality. So we'd gone through an ethics process to work out how we could be as careful as possible with people's anonymity. And we decided that we would use unique references for them. So they would have an LFF, Lucy Faithfull Foundation number. So we started at 1 and then worked our way up. And it was as simple as that. But it would be fair to say, again, in my experience with the people that I talked to and am talking to throughout the life of the project, anonymity didn't appear to be a big thing for them. It was quite strange that they were okay, and particularly the guy that I did an interview with, the participant, he was okay that we knew who he was. Not that we went that far, but he was okay with that.
I think that's probably a good opportunity to actually hear an excerpt now from a participant in the project. We're going to call him Participant A, and he has been working with the Lucy Faithfull Foundation and other organizations, and he's been having monthly check-ins with Lucy Faithfull support managers there to discuss using the tech on his device. And in this excerpt, he's going to describe joining the Protech project and why he wanted to do it.
So I came to the Lucy Faithfull Foundation a while back now, and during that time I've been very keen to look at ways that I could move forward myself, but at the same time, look at ways that I could help other people move forward and theoretically stop people from from getting to where I am in this whole process. And well, that's when the Salus app trial came up, and I was asked to participate, and yeah, I was very happy to do so.
We just heard from participant A, who volunteered to take part in the trial, and he says because he wanted to make amends and try and do something positive. I think you mentioned before the reasons sort of people gave for wanting to sort of be involved, but is that similar with what other participants have been saying?
Yeah, it's quite similar in what our participants said. Actually, there are various reasons why they wanted to participate in the pilot. First of all, it was something, the app or the technology was something that could help themselves from the therapy aside, of course. But also, as the participant A mentions, our participants also wanted to mean something because they have, of course, made mistakes in themselves, and they want to help other people learning from their experiences.
And I think it might be helpful sort of to know, I mean, Chris sort of touched on earlier sort of how they were able to access the app and how it was on their device and how they were able to use it. Can you explain sort of what sort of content does it block and how were they able to choose what sort of things, or were they able to choose what sort of content that this Salus app could block?
Yeah, so Salus aims to block CSAM-related content. So it's such as videos, images, but also keywords and URLs. And there was also an option in the app. So that was an option that could not be switched on or off, the CSAM filter. There was also a pornography filter, which every participant could choose to either switch it on or off. And when a participant made the choice to switch it on, it also blocked the pornography content, for instance, on porn websites.
So when the content is blocked, does the participant know straight away? Do they get a message? Yeah,
so what I've heard from our participants, it's quite a bit different on, for example, a desktop or a laptop and a smartphone. When you get a blocking message on your smartphone, for example, the whole screen shows the blocking message. But when you're, for example, searching on a porn website on your desktop, the little thumbnails are blocked on the website, but you can still see the whole website and link, etc. So it's quite different depending on which.
Yeah, I think, Larissa, that's right, because it's about the illegality, if you like, of the fact that you're able to access adult pornography legally, whereas with child sexual abuse imagery and videos, you can't. So that's exactly our participants' experience. Mm-hmm. There was the blocking message that you would never see the CSAM, but with regard to the adult pornography, the legal pornography, if you will, then it would tell you that, yeah, that's there. And I think would be fair to say, and SafetyNet, who were developing the app, would say that there would always be things that maybe got through, even though there were keywords and images and whatever. Certainly not so much around CSAM, but around adult pornography. So a lot of our participants made use of that adult pornography button to stop that coming through, but it did. So I guess around 80% of it would be blocked, but there would still be some things that came through.
Yeah.
But that pushing of the button was totally voluntary, wasn't it? It was something that they could choose to do or not.
And I think that's sort of, it's helpful to know as well that this is the nature of this pilot was to sort of explore if this works and using this sort of tech if it worked and how it could be improved. So it sounds like there was opportunities here for them to sort of feedback and let the project know if some material was getting through and when not. And so how were you able to, Larissa, then gather feedback on the app and the use as part of an intervention program? You say at University Forensic Centre there's are there in-person discussions and things like that? So where the app was being discussed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually, I haven't in-person discussions with the participants, but we made an agreement that when there were issues or they needed to provide feedback, they could do it, of course, through email and phone, but also let their therapist know. And then my colleague, the therapist, would mention it to me and I would contact the participants. Some participants also provide directly feedback through the app, but we've asked to also let us know what kind of issues they experience. And we also did our check-in with every respondent every 2-3 weeks, because some of the participants didn't give any feedback through the whole pilot. And that way we try to monitor it very closely and also, try to avoid any dropout or issues that they experienced.
Yeah, so Benny, all that information is useful in the end, isn't it? Sort of who is involved, why they might have stayed involved, and why they may have dropped out. And then, so do we know then if in discussion with therapists and stuff, would they have been talking about sort of using the app as part of helping them to manage their behavior?
Yeah, so it was more something from a side path from the therapy, when some participants explain it as something that when they leave their therapy session, they are alone and it's quite difficult to avoid falling back in the same behavior. So the app was a good solution for them to stay away from searching and distributing the CSAM material.
So it sounds like there's another layer to sort of bolster and sort of help them to not go down that road. You mentioned earlier about the filter to filter out adult porn as well on a person's device. I think now we're going to hear a bit more from participant A, because he was asked if he was used this facility and as well as why, he needed the support, technical support, to help him stop viewing if he didn't feel that he would be able to do it on his own.
I think with anything like this and the offending, that I did, you're always going to need help. And I think, people who say that they can just stop on their own and not offend again have kind of faulted themselves, to be honest, because my offence came from watching mainstream pornography and then going down the rabbit hole, as they say, and ended up looking at indecent images, and unless you get the help through all of this, basically, from looking at what you've had, how your past has been and, everything else, you can't do it on your own. And I feel like that, the app is part of the structure that you put in place to enable you to stop offending and basically, become a better person. But you do need those tools. In terms of myself, obviously, look, I'd be amazed if people haven't started looking at adult pornography before they've offended. Look, maybe for other people, I don't know. But for me, it was the route that led me into where I am now. And so to be able to block that is really important. And, it's fine to say, yes, we can block indecent images of children, but you're still looking at porn all the time, and at some point along the line, you'll probably just end up reoffending again because your brain is wired in that way. So if you can stop it at all, then that's really what will help, really.
In what we've just heard, participant A has described needing tools like this app to help him stop offending. Chris, in your experience, do you think using this type of tech is beneficial as part of an intervention?
Oh, without doubt. And the participant that we've just heard from, we hear that an awful lot. The fact that something like this app is useful in keeping himself safe. And not only keeping himself safe, but showing to others, his loved ones, his relatives, his friends, that actually he's doing something about this. And he's wanting to do something about this for the right reasons. So the app is part of a toolbox of things that he can use. And this guy used other things as well as the Salus app. And he was really clear that that's what he wanted to do. And we knew with the Salus app, because it was so experimental and it was so groundbreaking, that there'd be some issues. But he was very keen to carry on working through with us how he used the app. So it is useful. It's proven to be useful with certainly the participants that I've spoken to. And it's how we move on and develop it from where we are now.
Yeah, I would like to jump in because we have the same experience. Although there were some issues relating to the app, most of our participants said that Salus was very useful for them. And also which is typical to this group is they have tried to use other technologies such as parental control apps to help them, but they have communicated to us that Salus was more based on their needs and it's more efficient than the parental control apps they have used in the past.
So it sounds like there's other tech out there, but there's nothing necessarily that's particularly focused on child sexual abuse material and content. And that's why it's so useful for this specific group. I don't know, Chris, are there any sort of other insights that participants have said about using the safety tech app and help manage their behavior? Is there anything sort of we haven't touched on yet and how they found it?
I think the main thing is as I've said, it's an added layer of protection for them. And we hear quotes from them saying things like, I'd never go there again, but I know it's there and it helps. Mm-hmm. But I think more important to the participants that I've spoken to over 9 months is that they can show others, not only family, friends, relatives, but also law enforcement, if they're being dealt with by law enforcement, that they are doing something to stop this behaviour happening again. And actually they're doing it for the right reasons. So that's been my experience of the fact that it's been useful not only as a safety net, if you like, but also to show and demonstrate that they want to do something about their behaviour.
Thank you. And to get a little bit sort of technical now, to sort of talk about the app, and we were sort of talking about, what it kind of offers. There's some technology behind it that I think there's a sort of terminology is that it works in real time, and that it stops the tech from even appearing on the screen. It stops the illegal content from even appearing on the screen before the volunteer would even see it. Do you see that as an advantage when it comes to blocking child sexual abuse content, as opposed to other methods of sort of monitoring people's behaviour online?
Without doubt, yes. But it's one part of a package of intervention, I think. And I think it's really important, back in the day when we've been working with technology 10 or 15 years ago, it is far better for images or anything of that nature to not appear rather than it appear and then it be captured by some other software. So yes, that's how technology's moved on. I am sure, and I'm not technical in any way, shape or form, that there's more that can be done and that can be developed to make this application a better one. But as far as the trial's gone, and with the experience of the participants, that's been a real bonus, that it's blocked it and they can't see it.
And I think if I can add from what we know from working at the Internet Watch Foundation, if the aim is to ultimately try and protect people online and protect victims who are having their imagery sort of shared, just the knowledge that this is further stopping the spread, further stopping people from seeing the imagery, and also from anyone having to moderate this imagery themselves and to say, yes, this is illegal, it's not. So it takes that extra layer away as well and helps protect victims whose imagery is already out there and being shared. Larissa, if I can come to you now, and we sort of talked about the practicalities and the ins and outs of how the pilot has been deployed, but are you able to sort of explain, give us sort of an overview of what is it that the Protech project was sort of setting out to achieve, and what was it that you actually wanted to learn from the pilot?
Well, actually, what I hope to learn from the pilot is that actually the pilot proved that there is a great need among the target audience to be able to use this kind of technology. As I already mentioned, many of them already tried parent control apps, for instance, and they indicated that it's clearly something else and more based on their needs. And I hope we can take these messages on board and use them as a basis for future work around AI technology and, of course, in relating to the prevention of CSAM.
And I mean, it's sort of still early stages now. We haven't sort of got all the sort of the research sort of outcomes yet. But are we able to say, or have the participants have been able to say whether they feel that there has been behavioral change as a result of using the app?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's difficult to pinpoint it at this moment, especially given the short time frame the pilot in Belgium took place. But I asked this to the participants themselves, and a few did indicate that at least at the moment it did influence their behavior in a positive way. And after all, they did not go looking for other images or videos after they saw the blocking message. But of course, on the long-term effects, we cannot predict it at the moment.
I think let's hear now from participant A again about what his hopes for the pilot were, and if he thought that it helped him, if it was an effective deterrent.
I wanted it to work. The biggest problem is that there isn't. You don't really know about these things until you kind of need them. And there was nothing out there that specifically said it would be able to block indecent images of children and the additional option, for pornography filter as well. There's nothing out there for that. It's not something you can just put into, Google or the Apple Store. So having an app specifically made for people who have offended, like I have done that. For me, that was really important. I think that for people who have offended, it's probably going to be more apparently useful. But I think what will be needed will be some sort of education to say, people, look, you may not have offended yet. You've been using porn and you're looking at maybe things you think are maybe not 100%. For those people, this is something that you could be using. So it could be someone offending, which enables them to not offend. It blocks them from doing that. And I feel like it's fine doing it after, but to try and get it while it's still able is probably a much better idea. It's still on my phone now. For me, it's important to have as many tools as possible at my disposal to enable my continued better behaviour, and the Salus app is part of that.
So, Chris, are you able to sort of explain a bit now about what happens next? What stage are we in the pilot, and sort of what happens to them in the project at the stage of the project?
So, I think it would be good to mention and make clear that although we've been doing the same thing, Larissa's team and us at LFF, the difference is that Larissa's team have been having face-to-face contact with guys, whereas we've been doing it purely anonymously and over the phone. So what we've offered through the life of the project is a monthly callback where they're able to speak to us. And I will have spoken to the participant that we've heard from throughout this chat. I've had 9 calls with him in total, and it's always been me that's spoken to him. And we've developed a sort of relationship where we can discuss what his journey, if you like, in inverted commas, has been as he goes through the project and how he moves on, and whether it's been useful, whether it's going to help him keep safe in the future. But I think what I wanted to say as well was, how do we get to those people who've not been arrested? And can we do something where we're not waiting for crisis, or we're not waiting for, if you like, a police intervention or other law enforcement? And for me, that's the bigger question about how we move on and develop the app. Is it part of something that we can use, particularly to get to people who maybe are thinking about viewing child sexual abuse imagery or videos, but want to get some help because actually they know what they're doing is wrong? Mm-hmm. And in my experience, most of the people I've dealt with and worked with absolutely do know that what they're doing is wrong and it's harmful, and they want some help. Mm-hmm. Of course, there will be some that aren't like that, but as I say, in my experience, they are. So how do we get to them? How do we get messages across, as Larissa said, that can get people, as our participant A has said, almost like, I wish I'd known about you before I got to the point that I did, and things would have been a lot different. And the fallout, if you like, not only for him, but for everybody else that has then been involved with him and this process, doesn't happen. So that for me is sort of the question that is there to be answered.
Thank you, Chris. And I think some of what you touched on there, we're going to hear one last time from participant A, and I think he mentions some of what you covered there. But I think we're going to leave the discussion there for this episode. It's been really interesting, and thank you everyone for taking part. The next episode, which is our final one, episode 4, will be digging into the research findings and the sort of the key insights, and it'll be looking at the project as a whole. It's sort of its successes, its challenges, and sort of the recommendations for the future that have come out of the project. I'm just going to mention the Sparks in the Dark website, which brings together information on lots of different research that's happening in the space looking at child sexual abuse prevention. So you can find out more about the Protech project and other projects, research projects at sparksinthedark.net. With me today has been Larissa Van Puyvelde, a criminologist and junior researcher at the University Forensic Centre, and Chris Pummell, child sexual abuse prevention manager at the Lucy Faithfull Foundation in the UK. Before we finish today, we'll hear one last time from participant A. Thank you all for listening.
If anyone this is going to sound a bit cliche, but if anyone is listening to this and is in a situation where they may be looking at things that they shouldn't be looking at and they're unsure what to do, the first thing I'm going to say is just get help. Just speak to somebody, because I spent a long time not speaking to anybody, and that's why I'm in the situation that I'm in now. So if you feel like you're struggling, and if you're not sure what to do, there is help out there, and I didn't realise that until after the event, But for people who are listening to this, who are pre that event, then I would really recommend speaking to people like the Lucy Faithfull Foundation. Safe for Lives is another one. Talking to people. Really, the biggest thing is just talking about it, getting it out in the open, understanding what's going on with yourself, and trying to put things in place to ensure that you don't get to where I've gotten to, and where lots of other people have gotten to as well.